Yeah, I'm fighting for the right for people to be themselves and to not have
Yeah.
to be ambassadors through art. Art is not being a representative or a politician. Yeah, yeah, how's it going?
No, yeah. How's it going? How you been?
Man, it's just the world's going nuts.
Yeah, and I saw you were obviously you're friends with Patrice, and I know you were talking a little about what's been going on as well about what people can
Yes.
do. So it's
Yeah.
good that you're doing.
Yeah, she's amazing, man. So we've just been, yeah, doing what we can.
Yeah. So I mean, let's talk about Ramy. The show
Mhm.
italicized Ramy.
Yes.
So I mean, obviously, season one was, I know, for a lot of people, an unexpected hit. It came out of nowhere, and especially there were people, in the region that were just so grateful. I have a lot of friends who are just so grateful to have this come out of nowhere and tell stories that people had never really heard before, and tell stories that, frankly, people in the region can't tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, how was how much were you conscious of an audience that was overseas and that couldn't tell these stories and that couldn't dive into this aspect of their own culture and their own faith and all the aspects of that?
In season one, and even to an extent in season two, not fully conscious of the reach. I think to the benefit of the show because I don't know what it would have done if I kind of started thinking, well, let me write to this global thing. Like it's not really a fun place to write from.
Mm,
I So much of this is mined from stand up that I work out in rooms of 40 people, anywhere from 40 people to 8 people to a couple thousand, but small intimate spaces, right? And then growing that material into these characters. And so the scope to me is very personal, and the reach of my work before this show was always super personal. I could hear it. I could hear it in person. I could hear where it was going. I could feel how people were reacting to it in the room. And then yeah, Rami just scales all that. And I think when you scale it, you're not aware, for me, I'm not aware that it's going to do the things that you just said. I'm not aware that people in Egypt and in Dubai and really all over the world are going to be. I mean, I think we were really shocked at the reach.
mm. I mean, how collaborative was the process and how you're going to handle this material? Because obviously, you do have people, like the actress who plays your sister, for example, was born in Bahrain. You have a lot of people who have spent a lot of time,
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
region. You yourself, I think, lived in Egypt for some time as well, right?
No,
Ever?
I spent all my summers there, but I didn't live there proper.
Mm. So, how did
Um,
conversations with others, affect the material itself, rather than just what was going on in your own head?
yeah, always. I mean, this is shaped. We talk about it exhaustively in terms of writing the show. Um, to me, the best model, and I figured this out kind of even more so going into season two, is just everyone kind of interrogating me and pulling things. We kind of argue about certain things that are exciting to us. We try to find pockets of things that are interesting. We throw out so many ideas until we land on things that really we feel like we would have a unique take on as a show. And then that happens in the writer's room, and then we get to set, and yeah, you can just feel it coming out of an actor's mouth if the way it's coming out is right or wrong, and then we adjust that way. Definitely, especially season two, I had a lot of conversations with May, who plays Dina, and we really built that episode around her real life experience of
Mm,
feeling like she had Hased on her, of you know dealing with hair loss as a woman, and trying to
mm,
understand what that meant. So that was kind of a prime example of something that actually just came out of an actor conversation, and then ends up being this thing where the amount of women who have reached out to her and reached out to me being like, how did you know about this really specific like pocket of this feeling,
mm,
and the resonance on something like that. Yeah, I certainly again wasn't aware, and that came from that. So the environment that I like having on the show is everyone talking about everything, but I do make sure that I kind of it sits with me, and it's got to sit with me. And there are things that other people find interesting that I don't, and I don't do them. I don't do things unless they really sit with where I want this to go.
Mm. Well, talking about, challenging yourself, because obviously, even conceptually taking on some of this material, especially when you're the first person to ever do, certain things, depict certain things. What scared you most about doing this show, both in season 1 and season 2, and how did you overcome that?
I think the thing that scares me most is that I care about the faith, I care about the culture, I care about the community. Um, it it feels like it feels like something that, yeah, I have so many. It's funny because I think people watching will have sensitivities of what's going on, and I'm like, I have those sensitivities too.
Mm.
Like it's really like there's for me this element of knowing what I want to do as a comedian, and then
Mm.
knowing you know who who I am even just as an audience member, and so you're always kind of trying to close that gap.
Mm. I mean, how do you deal with, obviously you're making a very personal show, and making it, the more personal you get, the more universal it becomes, I guess, is just the general rule with that. But how do you, I mean, obviously, especially, this is something that's never put, I mean, talking about, um, the anti-blackness, something that's never really put on white people is the responsibility of speaking for a people, responsibility of speaking for a culture of faith. You're kind of allowed to just be a person without a hyphen before it. Um, and obviously, you are someone who's taking on a culture and taking on a faith and taking that on. But how do you, I mean, it's obviously also not fair, the pressures that are put upon you and the responsibilities put upon you in order to take on those issues. So how do
Mm.
you grasp with that concept?
Um, yeah, I'm fighting for the right for people to be themselves and to not have
Yeah.
to be ambassadors through art. Art is not being a representative or a politician.
Yeah.
Getting to make something is a personal expression. And so if you're fixated on the what are, again, I almost consider political ramifications of making something, and
Yeah.
having to take that weight on your shoulders, it's just anti making anyone laugh. It's anti making something that feels organic. And so I really, I see all of that, I feel it, and then I put it away because it's not really, it would be irresponsible to try and take those things on because you'd get criticism for trying to do that too.
Mm.
I start to really think of, well, what am I trying to avoid? If I operate from certain places, and so it's like if I'm trying to avoid criticism, that's a loss. So why would I avoid myself? I'd rather just do the things that are going to be taken however they're going to be taken, but at least they're true to what I want to do.
Mm. How do you feel that you've grown as a storyteller and a filmmaker? Like, how do you feel? Are you approaching things differently? Are you thinking about things differently? Or you feel like you're a better collaborator? 'Cause especially here, you are credited as a writer on every single episode, whereas the first one you're credited on some wholly, but here you're collaborating with other people the whole time, and as well as coming into your own as a director. How do you feel, like, internally, how you've changed?
So much of the show is just, again, it really does run through, it's my name, the one, my real name. So
Yeah.
I think something we figured out season one was obviously the level of ownership that I was taking over every story and every script and everything that was going on. And so I think season two is really just continuing to grow into that, and you kind of figure out what um what worked and kind of where it should go. And so it's less about official titles on things and just more for me getting to do it more. When we started season one, I had made no episodes. Now I've made 20. And so I just keep taking it in, and so much of it is with anything like this is you just got to keep doing it, and you just keep, it's not that you get better, I think it's that you get, for me, I just get more me. It's like the gap between what I want to say and how it shows up on screen is just getting smaller, and so that's exciting to me. I think so much of, even tonally, in certain things we got to do in season 2 just feel closer to things that excite me, and so um getting to close that gap and getting to continue to grow into that has been yeah, really the only way you could learn it by doing it. And that's
Mm,
something, again, for me, is just such a stand-up concept, which is,
mm.
you just can't get better on stage unless you're on stage as much as you can be.
No, absolutely. How have you, obviously, I mean, you've in a lot of ways set the ground for a lot more storytelling to come. Can you give me an insight a little bit into, obviously, you don't want to give away ideas that you're working on now, but what are some of the things that you aspire to cover in the first place that you maybe thought that you were going to be able to here and still haven't been able to? What do you feel that is still left undone?
I mean, even without giving away plot, it's weird that I never would have thought that at the end of 2 seasons I would feel like we were just getting started. There's so
Mm,
many things that I've figured out about these characters, again, kind of scaling from stand up to an ensemble cast, where I've gotten to put a lot of my material in other characters, and then I start to see where they're at. Um, I'm just really excited to dig into them in a much deeper way. Uh, and then I think even I can kind of project on some level how far things will go with um, where these characters on my show goes. And then I just get excited about, oh man, there are so many other takes on what happens underneath the Muslim of umbrella, or even underneath the Muslim of being Arab, that we're never going to get to. And it just makes it clear how many things could be made and how many things should be made,
mm.
not just by me, but by other people who I hope are excited or aggravated by this portrayal. One or the other, I think, is like really good fuel for making more stuff.
So are you going to consciously try to, co-produce and lift up other voices? And
Yeah, that's in the process. Yeah.